record this. Okay. So this morning, we will start talking about our insulin and the different insulin preparations we have in the market. And if we still have time, maybe we can start our discussion about the oral hypoglycemic agents. Let's get to know them. So we are done with the antihypertensive agents, and then let's jump here kasi these are common drugs na parating dinidispense in the market since we have an increased number of people with both cardiovascular diseases and diabetes in the Philippines. Now, again, let's talk about insulin class. Insulin is produced by the pancreas, especially the beta cells of the islet of Langerhans in the pancreas. Now, what is the work of insulin? This one regulates blood sugar. Okay? Again, ito class, nagre-regulate ito ng blood sugar. Without insulin, we cannot use our glucose. So for example, this is our cell. Remember that the glucose, our physiological sugar, is a big molecule. And since it is a big molecule, it is not easily permitted to cross the membrane of the cell and enter the cell. So if you want to have glucose transported inside, you need first the help of insulin, wherein if insulin class binds to its insulin receptor, there will be cascade of events that will lead to the entrance of glucose in the cell. Now, why do we need the glucose to enter the cell? Remember, glycolysis happen in the cytoplasm. Okay, again, glycolysis happen in the cytoplasm of the cell. And remember, glycolysis is our process of breaking down this glucose for us to produce a lot of ATPs, which will be our energy in the body. Now, if we have problem with insulin production or insulin sensitivity to the cell, that's the time we will have problem also with the entrance of glucose inside. And because glucose cannot enter, it will just stay in the blood. Therefore, if we are going to check the blood of a person with diabetes mellitus, we will get to see there na merong hyperglycemia. Okay? Kasi nga, hindi siya makakapasok. Now, what is insulin? It's a small protein. It's a hormone with a molecular weight in humans of 5,808. Now, since this is a protein, syempre, this is made up of amino acids. Remember, our building block for our proteins are amino acids. Now, in the case of insulin, this contains 51 amino acids and they are arranged in 2 chains. Okay, dalawang chain ito for the insulin. And these 2 chains are linked together by disulfide bands or disulfide bridges. This is for the structure of insulin. Now, how about the storage of insulin? I told you a while ago that insulin is produced by the beta cells in the islet of Langerhans of the pancreas. Now, syempre, it is stored there, it is released there, it is stored there in the form of crystals consisting of 2 atoms of zinc and 8 molecules of insulin. So again, there is a ratio here for the storage of insulin inside the pancreas, inside the beta cells. It's 2:8. 2 atoms of zinc per 8 molecules of insulin. That is actually a board exam question. That is why zinc there is being bold in the screen. Now, before it becomes an insulin class, we have the so-called proinsulin. This is the parang anong tawag nga dyan sa enzyme na yan? We have the apoenzyme, holoenzyme, zymogen. Okay. This one is like a zymogen wherein ano siya, parang inactive. Though this is not an enzyme, ha, pero parang ganon. Now, this is the inactive form of insulin, the proinsulin. It has to be activated to insulin before it can really do its work. However, ito yung parang raw precursor of insulin. It's like just a long chain protein molecule. Again, our insulin is 2 chains ha. Ito, long single chain and is processed in the Golgi apparatus ng beta cells of our pancreas and ipapackage siya into granules. Now, if it undergoes hydrolysis, that's the time insulin will be produced. Now, how do we produce insulin from the proinsulin? There will just be a removal of 4 amino acids. Okay? Removal of 4 amino acids. The process is hydrolysis, and then again, the product will be the insulin itself. Now, remember, insulin is being stored in the pancreas. Now, if we need insulin, then it has to be released. Okay? Now, how do we release insulin? It will be released because of a variety of stimuli. One of that, and the most important, is glucose. In case na there will be increase in our glucose level in the blood, insulin will be released. So just like ngayon, I don't know if before coming to class, you have already eaten. Or since you are not turning on your camera, maybe you are eating there. So after eating class, we call that postprandial. After eating, we are really expecting that there will be a shoot up in the glucose in our blood. Now that will become a stimulus for the pancreas to release the stored insulin. Okay? For us to use the glucose for the succeeding activities that we are going to do the whole day. But aside from glucose class, other sugars and even amino acids can also stimulate the release of this insulin. And hormones like GLP-1, GIP, the glucagon, even the glucagon and the cholecystokinin and other vagal activities class can also trigger the release of insulin. However, the most important one is the shoot up of glucose in the body. However, there are also inhibitory signals in the release of insulin. What do I mean by this? If these are the triggering factors why insulin is released from the pancreas, ito naman yung reasons why insulin will not be released in the pancreas. It will just be stored there, but again, the release will be inhibited. So what are these things that can inhibit release of pancreas? We have here the somatostatin, which is our growth hormone, the leptin, and take note, this one is clinically important, chronically elevated glucose and fatty acid levels. Chronically, ha? Example, a person is experiencing or is suffering from diabetes mellitus for a long time, and that the glucose class is not regulated. Hindi talaga siya na-regulate, so almost all of the time it's elevated. That can further inhibit the release of insulin. So talagang lalala class yung diabetes ng person. Kasi instead of meron pa siyang available insulin to be released and used to regulate the blood glucose level, but since chronically hindi talaga na-regulate yung blood sugar niya, hindi talaga nabalik sa normal level, mura na siya og kanang para murag manduod na dili na mo produce si pancreas of insulin. That is also true for fatty acid levels. So that is the reason why we don't really have cure for diabetes, but we have drugs to control the blood sugar level kasi we are like preventing this thing to happen na yung insulin talagang hindi na ma-release from the pancreas. So aside from the different complications of diabetes, ha? Okay? Questions or clarifications about that before we'll continue? Yun yung hindi naintindihan. Baka meron kayong hindi naintindihan dyan. Tell me so that we can explain it again. Wala. So how about insulin degradation? So just like other substances in our body, insulin is degraded also, and it will be on the liver and the kidneys. These are the site of insulin degradation. Now, our normal values for our circulating insulins are the following. We have here 5 to 15 microunit per ml, or that is equivalent to 30 to 90 picomole per liter. Again, this is the normal value of the supposedly circulating insulin. Syempre, if this is decreased, that's the time we can say na oh, there is a problem with the person and he or she might be experiencing diabetes already. Now, we have here the peak values for circulating insulin. When you say peak, remember, nasabi ko kanina, postprandial, during meal or even after meal, there will be an expected shoot up in our glucose, so there will be a release of insulin. So this will be the peak values, 60 to 90 microunit per ml, or that is equivalent to 360 to 540 picomoles per liter. Okay? Now, we have here agents that can either inhibit like the binding of insulin sa kanyang receptor, or it can increase its affinity to its receptor. So please take note of this. Hormonal agents like our glucocorticoids, again, our glucocorticoids plus, or like we call that corticosteroid, can lower our affinity, can lower the affinity of insulin to its receptor. So that is the reason why one adverse effect of this corticosteroid is diabetes mellitus or hyperglycemia. Okay? For those people who are constantly taking corticosteroid, example in the case of asthmatic people, that corticosteroid sila parate, or those like with allergy, and then they have like chronic allergy or parang recurrent most of the time na allergy, they will be in steroids also, or those who are suffering from like autoimmune disease, and the person will be given glucocorticoids most of the time to lower down the immune system, the activity of the immune system. Yun yung mga examples of people who are always taking glucocorticoids. Maano kasi maapektuhan talaga ang activity ni insulin sa kanila. Okay, so again, they will have lower affinity of insulin to its receptor. Remember, without insulin, we cannot have the glucose enter the cell. And that means the patient will most likely experience hyperglycemia. Okay, that is one of the most common adverse activity or adverse effect of our glucocorticoids. Now, it's the other way around for our growth hormone. An excess in somatostatin, or again, our growth hormone, will increase affinity of insulin to its receptor. So most likely its activity will be increased. Okay? Questions or clarifications? Wala. Or nagyan. Wala. So, let's talk about endocrine effects of our insulin. Ano ba yung effect ng insulin if it binds to its receptor? So, we have here effects on the liver. Sa liver class, there will be reversal of catabolic features of insulin deficiency. And what does it mean? There will be inhibition of the glycogenolysis. What do you mean by glycogenolysis? You have here glycogen and then lysis. What is glycogen? It is our stored carbohydrate. We store that in our liver and our skeletal muscles. Okay, again, we store our glycogen in our liver and our skeletal muscle. It will be stored less if we have excessive glucose in our body. Now, during the time that we do not eat or we starve ourselves, it's the time our liver will undergo glycogenolysis, meaning it will lyse, it will break down the glycogen to release the glucose and take it back to the blood. Now, insulin will prevent that to happen. Kasi, remember, if we're going to get it get it back to the blood, might increase yung blood sugar. So, yun yung ini-inhibit ng ating insulin. And then inhibits conversion of fatty acids and amino acids to keto acids. Okay? Fatty acids class in the body when broken down will release ketone bodies. And these ketone bodies are acidic in nature and it may cause ketoacidosis. When you say acidosis, it will be the lowering of the pH in the blood. Remember, the normal pH in the blood is 7.35 to 7.45. Now, lower than 7.35 means acidosis. And if the patient experiences acidosis, other things, other substances in the body will not function well. Thus, the tissues and the organs will also not function well. So, for example, our proteins or our amino acids class exist as whiter ions in that specific range of pH, and that if the pH is either lowered or increased, then these amino acids will not be used by the body. So, maapektuhan yung body natin, yung function. So, one of the good effect of insulin, ang work niya, function of insulin in the body is to prevent that from happening. Okay? Converting the fats, the fatty acids to ketone acids, and that is to avoid acidosis also. And this will inhibit conversion of amino acid to glucose also. Remember, the process is called gluconeogenesis. Okay? I don't know kung you can still remember your biochem class with Ma'am Cherry. So ito yung pinag-uusapan in biochem, right? If magdi-discuss na ng carbohydrates. So again, glycolysis is the process of breaking down the glucose for us to have ATPs, for us to have the source of our energy. Now, during the time that you have excess glucose, some of that will be stored in the liver in the form of glycogen, and the process is called glycogenesis. Okay, glycogenesis, it's the start of making glycogen. However, if it's the other way around, if we're going to break down glycogen, the stored glycogen gagawin siya, convert it back to glucose and take it back to the blood. The process is called glycogenolysis. So yun, ang ini-inhibit ni insulin. And ito naman is converting amino acids, actually including fats. Though in this case, it's just fatty acid, ay amino acid na ini-inhibit ni insulin. Converting non-sugar source to glucose is called gluconeogenesis, meaning we are making glucose from a new or ano yan, yung other source, non-sugar sources like the amino acids. Ipa-prevent natin yan from happening. That is the use of our insulin. That is the catabolic action of insulin. How about anabolic? Wait lang ha. Please take note of this. Catabolism plus anabolism is called metabolism. Okay? The catabolism class is breaking down of large molecules of substances into smaller ones, while anabolism is the other way around. We are going to make a large molecule from our smaller ones. But if we are going to combine the two processes, that's the definition of metabolism. So, si insulin class has a metabolic activity. Metabolic activities, marami pala. Meron siyang catabolic activities, pero it's more on the inhibition of these catabolic activities. And meron din siyang anabolic activities or actions. So, ano yung anabolic activity niya? It promotes glucose storage as glycogen. So, it will inhibit breaking down of glycogen, but it will also promote the glucose, excessive glucose in the body to be stored as glycogen. Anabolic yan kasi from smaller molecules of glucose, you will be making a polysaccharide. Glycogen is a polysaccharide. That's our stored polysaccharide in the body. Okay? And aside from that, insulin can also trigger or stimulate the increase in the synthesis of our triglycerides. Again, please have a review of your biochem, and then I think humana mo og review sa biochem sa inyong review class. Diba? When you say triglyceride, we are talking about fats and oils. And at the same time, synthesis of the VLDL. VLDL is one type of cholesterol. Okay? So it will prevent breaking down of fatty acids, but it will trigger the production of these larger molecules, the triglycerides and our VLDL or our cholesterol. These are the anabolic activities of our insulin. Okay? Next, how about the effect of insulin in our muscle? So, there will be class increased protein synthesis in the muscle, meaning because of insulin, there will be an increase in the transportation of our amino acids to our muscles to produce proteins and increase the protein synthesis activity in the ribosomes. Okay, so please do not forget that we produce our protein in the ribosomes. That's one of the organelles of the cells. Now, aside from that, in the muscle, it will increase glycogen synthesis. So remember, I have told you just a while ago that insulin class has anabolic feature, and one of that is glycogenesis. So, it is not just in the liver that we store our glycogen. The skeletal muscle is also included. So glucose will be transported in the muscle and it will trigger the enzymes like glycogen synthase and inhibits the other enzyme phosphorylase to produce the glycogen and be stored in the skeletal muscle. Okay? That's for the muscles activity of insulin. Most likely class insulin is very important because it's not just about glucose in the blood and utilization of glucose to have a lot of energy. Most of the organ system in the body is affected by insulin. So it will really be a problem if a person has a problem also with insulin. So even the adipose tissues are also included here. If you have a lot of insulin, there will be an increased triglyceride storage. Okay? Remember fats and oils, class, it will be stored in our adipose tissues if we have a lot of insulin. In some part, this is not like parang likable for us. We don't want this really to happen, to have a lot of fats and oils deposited in our adipose tissues. Because that means tataba tayo. Okay? So again, lipoprotein lipase is induced and activated by our insulin. So that's the enzyme needed to hydrolyze triglycerides from our lipoproteins. Okay? And thus, it will be stored in our adipose tissues kasi it will be like transported into the cell. Glucose will be transported into the cell also and will provide this other parts needed to produce the fatty acids and the fats mismo. Okay? However, intracellular lipase is being inhibited by insulin. This lipoprotein lipase is different from intracellular lipase. This is outside the cell and this will trigger the release of a lot of fatty acids to be used to produce the triglyceride and be stored in the adipose tissues. While this one is inside the cell, remember intracellular, so it will prevent the breaking down of like the deposited fats inside the cell. Yan yung magiging trabaho ng insulin. So nakita nyo, diba, a person class with diabetes mellitus and uncontrolled yung blood sugar level, pumapayat. Okay, pumapayat, no? Kasi, remember, they have a lot of sugar in their blood, meaning yan, they are not able to use this sugar as source of energy. So their body will be looking for other source and that will be the fats. So fats will be broken down sa body para may energy yung person with uncontrolled blood sugar or yung person with diabetes mellitus. Okay? However, I don't know if you have noticed if the person with diabetes mellitus class has controlled already his or her sugar or blood sugar, that's the time parang makakabawi yung kanyang katawan. Tataba siya ulit. Okay? So this is one of the reasons kasi if you are going to use a lot of glucose as a source of energy, more fats will be deposited in the body. So tataba yung person with a lot of insulin. Okay? Questions? Those are the significant activities of insulin in the body. Anything that you would like to clarify? Basig katulugon pa mo din ha, parehas ta. Katulugon po ko actually. Wala. Sure na gyud. Kasi I'll be continuing this one. Bakit ginapainom ng Coke? Minsan ang gatik ng insulin. It's because when a person is given insulin class, we will really expect class a sudden decrease in the blood sugar level of a person. And the person may experience hypoglycemia. And that is actually more life-threatening compared to hyperglycemia. Kasi pag masyadong mababa yung blood sugar level natin sa blood, remember, we don't have energy pa rin yan, and most likely maapektuhan yung brain. Our brain needs glucose also to function well. So, paano makakapagtrabaho yung brain natin if we lack glucose in the body. So, pag nag-shoot down na yung kanilang blood sugar level, manghihina kasi sila. And most of the time, malipong na sila. There will be fainting. So, to prevent that from happening, minsan nagbibigay ng sugar source. If it's not Coke, parang pinapakain ata sila ng candy. Okay, again, that is just to increase. Konti lang naman na increase, hindi naman excessive talaga na increase. That is just to prevent the hypoglycemia. Okay? Mata na mo kay na hypoglycemia. That is always the body's mechanism for the deficiency. Remember, just like our heart, if the patient has heart failure, then there will be a deficiency of oxygen in the body, right? Because the blood cannot pump, the heart cannot pump blood efficiently. So, like, it's body's mechanism to enlarge the organ. Kasi thinking that if the organ is like large, then it would compensate to what is lacking. However, that is true for the beginning stage only, early stage, that it can compensate to what is lacking. Pero on the larger picture, on the long run, mas masisira yung heart nun. That is also true for the thyroid. If you have like thyroid disease and you have lack or deficiency in the thyroid hormone, the body will enlarge the thyroid. So as you can see, those persons with goiter class, di ba, malaki. That's still a body's mechanism to compensate to what is lacking. So thinking that if you have larger organ, it will produce a lot of hormone, also the thyroid hormone. So that is also true for the pancreas. It may be enlarged because, again, there is deficiency in the insulin production. And so, there will be a response from the body to increase the size of the pancreas, thinking that it will produce more insulin if it gets larger. That will always be the response of our body for all the deficiencies. It will first enlarge the organ. Okay? Oh, wait lang. Wait lang ha. Okay, your battery is running low. Okay. Okay. What else? Before tayo mag-move on sa ating insulin preparations in the market. Now, we will really get to know them one by one. In the hospital, this is common. Remember, we get to see our insulin stored in our refrigerator. That is also true in the community. Don't know if parati kayong nagdi-dispense nito. Let's get to know them one by one. Sige, let's talk about first the characteristics of our available insulin preparations. Our insulin class are classified into different types, and this is according to their duration of action. Okay? So first we have here rapid acting with rapid onset and short duration. And then we also have short-acting insulin, intermediate-acting insulin, and lastly, we have long-acting insulin with slow onset of action. So again, we are talking about the duration of action here. The start, it will measure the start of the effect of insulin up to its, like, end na effect. Na wala na siyang effect, gaano katagal yun, that's the duration of action. Yung onset, syempre, yung time required for the insulin to take its effect. Pag rapid onset, mabilis yung pag-epekto niya, pero short lang yung duration. And then we also have insulin na matagal masyado yung kanyang effect, pero, parang mahabang panahon yung kanyang duration of action, like it will be for the whole 24 hours, pero mabagal yung onset niya. Okay? First, let's talk about injected, rapid-acting, and short-acting insulin. Pagsamahin natin itong dalawa. Rapid-acting, rapid-acting and short-acting. Okay? Insulin preparation. So, if we are going to observe this, they are dispensed as clear solutions. Again, they are clear solutions. However, we cannot really, observe them kasi most of the pens that we have for our insulin are not really like clear and hindi makikita yung laman. Nevertheless, rapid-acting and short-acting insulins are clear solutions. They have neutral pH. And then they contain a small amount of zinc to improve the stability and the shelf life of the product. So that is another board exam question. What metal is like added to our insulin preparation to make it stable and to prolong its shelf life, or yung kanyang expiry, for example? That is zinc. That is the same element or metal na kasama ni insulin in the pancreas during storage. Okay, it's the zinc. Now, how about the intermediate acting? We call that NPH insulins. Okay? They are turbid suspensions. So, like, again, clear yung kanina, diba? Sa rapid and short acting. They are turbid solutions, but they do have neutral pH also. But they have additional protamine here in phosphate buffer just to stabilize the insulin. Kasi kanina zinc yung dinagdag. This time it's protamine in phosphate buffer. And aside from that, this can prolong again the action of the insulin. So compared to the previous one, this has an intermediate duration of action. NPH, yes, that is correct. That is called neutral protamine hagedorn. The protamine there is, aside from stability, its action is to slightly prolong the duration of action of insulin. Kaya naging intermediate acting insulin siya. And then lastly, we have our long-acting insulin. We have examples here, the insulin glargine and the insulin detimir. Both of them, again, are examples of long-acting insulin, and they are dispensed as clear and soluble solutions. Okay? Sige, let's get to know them one by one. Mga insulin preparations natin, starting with rapid-acting insulin. So again, rapid-acting ha, mabilis yung action nito. Pag-inject mo, after a little time, magte-take na siya ng effect, which means magpapababa na siya ng blood sugar level. But please take note that rapid-acting insulins class, though mabilis ang action, mababa class yung kanilang duration of action. So mabilis din silang ma-excrete sa body. And pag na-excrete, syempre wala na silang effect. So we have here the insulin Lispro, yung nasa open and closed parenthesis is an example of the brand of the insulin Lispro. We have the Humalog. The insulin aspart is Novolog, and the glulicin is we have the Apidra. Okay, we have the Apidra. Now, when do we use our rapid-acting and short-acting insulin? It is used binibigay siya immediately before the meal. Okay? Before yung patient kakain, mag-i-inject muna ng rapid-acting and short-acting insulin. And that is to prevent postprandial increase in the blood glucose level. What do I mean by that postprandial? Diba sabi ko kanina, after eating, mag-expect tayong shoot up in our blood glucose level. Yan yung activity ngayon ng rapid acting. Kasi it will mimic the true activity of insulin in the body. So right after eating, talagang magre-release yung body natin ng maraming insulin for us to use the glucose galing dun sa pagkain natin. So pag nagbigay tayo ng rapid-acting insulin before tayo kumain, before kakain yung patient, it will mimic the endogenous action of the insulin, postprandial or prandial insulin secretion. Okay? So kaya minsan kapag ang patient class ay binibigyan ng ganito, rapid-acting insulin, 3 times a day din silang mag-i-inject. Okay? Remember, insulin are being injected subcutaneously. You have tried doing a subcutaneous injection with the mice. It's almost true with our human body kung paano i-inject yung subcutaneous. Pero again, most of the time, this is given 3 times a day kasi most likely tatlong beses sa isang araw din tayong kakain. Okay? Before eating talaga ito binibigay. So again, example of that is the insulin Lispro. Yung mga pangalan nito is actually based on the amino acid na parang pinalitan or in-exchange para ma-produce yung insulin, okay, in the laboratory. Now, di ba sabi ko kanina, insulin is like a hormone, is made up of protein. We have 51 amino acids arranged in 2 chains connected by disulfide bridges. So, itong insulin Lispro na produced through recombinant DNA technology, wherein the position of the proline and the lysine in the amino acid sequence was reversed. Binaliktad si proline and si lysine, kaya merong nabuong insulin Lispro. So the name itself will give you a hint what amino acids were reversed, okay, in the sequence. That's again the lysine and the proline. And then again, the exchange of the 2 amino acids gives you class a short-acting or a rapid-acting insulin. However, the insulin aspart naman was created by substituting the proline in the B28 position. B means it's on the B chain. Remember, dalawang chain yung amino acid. So sa ikalawang chain, that's the B chain. On the 28th position, instead of a proline, it was substituted by a negatively charged aspartic acid. Thus, the name insulin aspart. The aspartic acid, their class makes it a short-acting insulin also. Okay? So, di ba, bright kayo mga nagabuhat ani in the laboratory. Like they were able to extract insulin from a human person and copy the insulin in the body, and at the same time do things like exchanging the positions of the amino acids or substituting one amino acid to another just to produce a drug that will be beneficial for this certain condition. So another one is the insulin glulicin. Okay, how do we produce naman the glulicin? It's formulated by substituting an asparagine for lysine at B3. Okay, that's the first one. On the B chain, on the third position, lysine was substituted with asparagine. And on the B29, lysine, another lysine class was substituted by glutamic acid. So that's the name, glulicin. So the substitution again makes it class a rapid-acting insulin. Okay, that's again rapid-acting ha. Any question for our rapid-acting insulin? Again, uulitin ko, kailan natin ibibigay? It's before meals kasi it will mimic the postprandial increase or even the prandial. Prandial is during eating, postprandial after eating. It will mimic less the release, yung endogenous release of insulin while we are eating or after eating. Kasi magte-take siya ng action agad para hindi maka-experience yung person ng sudden shoot up in the blood sugar level. Now, how about short-acting insulins? They are short-acting but they are not necessarily rapid-acting. Short-acting lang sila. Mabilis lang silang ma-excrete in the body. We have here regular Novolin R or the Novo Nordisk and the regular Humulin R. If you get to see them in the pharmacy, please take note that they are short-acting insulins. And just like the rapid-acting insulin, this is given before meals to just mimic the prandial endogenous secretion of insulin in the body. So most likely, since this is short-acting insulin, this will also be given like 3 times a day para i-prevent nga yung pag-shoot up ng glucose after eating. Pwede ulit si rapid. What do you mean? Pwede ulit si rapid postprandial. What do you mean? Yung rapid ibibigay siya after eating? Yan yung ginamin mo? Yung rapid acting ibigay siya again pagkatapos kumain? In some cases, baka pwede pa siyang ihabol. Pero baka late na din. Kasi remember, subcutaneous ito. So like, i-absorb pa siya sa blood to produce its action. So it will be more beneficial if we are going to give it preprandial before eating. Para pag na-absorb na siya, time na din yon na nag-shoot up na yung blood sugar level ng person. So, para ma-prevent yan na agad. Kasi kung tapos ka nang kumain, most likely, nag-start na yung digestion, nag-start na yung absorption ng glucose, napunta na siya sa blood. So, parang makaka-experience pa muna ng increase yung patient yan before the action of the rapid-acting insulin. So please take note that we are going to give it to the patient before meals. Okay? Kasi sa pharmacy, di ba, we are talking about like drug optimum na outcome. So preprandial natin siya ibibigay. Okay? Now, how about the regular insulins? Again, they are short-acting insulins made up of soluble crystalline zinc insulin na ano pa rin, na-produce pa rin sila through DNA recombinant technology. Now, how do we administer our regular acting insulins? This is, again, administered 30 to 45 minutes before meals. Ha? Atong regular insulin. May time tayo nito. 30 to 45 minutes before meals. Because remember, they are short-acting but they are not necessarily rapid-acting. And board exam question for our regular insulin, this is the only insulin preparation that can be administered intravenously. Take note, most of our insulins are given subcutaneously, SQ. Pero si regular insulin, pwede siyang ibigay intravenously. Okay? Take note of that. So for example, the person class is hospitalized and kailangan class ng parang continued na supply of insulin in the body, then we can give regular insulin for that. Now, how about intermediate acting insulins? We have here NPH Humulin N and NPH Novolin N. Okay? So that's how you know that it's intermediate acting insulin N. Kasi that's NPH. NPH Humulin N, NPH Novolin N. And we also have premixed insulins class that will make the insulin intermediate acting. We may combine Novolin 70 NPH to the 30 na regular or Humulin 70 na NPH with the 30 regular. Or 50-50, meaning 50% na NPL and then we have 50% na Lispro. So again, magiging intermediate acting siya. Ito silang lahat. Itong 70-30, that's the concentration. Like 70% will be this kind of insulin and another 30% for another type of insulin. Premixed insulin, ito sila. Ito yung makikita nyo sa market. Example sa ref, may nakikita kayo dyan 70-30, ganyan. Mga intermediate acting insulin natin sila. So when it comes to the administration, medyo mas mababa ng parang dosing frequency compared to our rapid acting or short acting. Sabi ko kanina yung mga rapid acting and short acting are given like 3 times a day, kung kailan kakakain, ganon. Ito, since it is like intermediate acting, medyo mababa yung frequency ng pagbigay. Okay? So when you say NPH insulin, that means neutral protamine hagedorn or tinatawag natin siyang isothane. So the presence of this one in the insulin preparation will delay the absorption of the insulin and thus it will delay also the onset of action. Okay, so kaya intermediate na lang yung kanyang action class. Matagal siyang ma-absorb, madedelay yung kanyang absorption na pag hindi kasi siya ma-absorb kagad, hindi siya makaka-take ng effect. Okay? And lastly, we have the long-acting insulins class. We have here the insulin detemir, that's Levemir, and the insulin glargine, which is our Lantus. Parang yan ata ang pinaka-common na insulin in the market, the Lantus, Lantus Solostar, insulin glargine. But let's add another one here, the insulin degludec. I forgot the brand name of the insulin degludec. Let's check. But please take note that insulin degludec is also a long-acting insulin. Baka na magsulod sa butika. You know, I cannot remember the brand. It's Tresiba. Okay. Have you encountered these insulins in the market in your duties, like sa hospital and sa community? Nag-dispense kayo ng insulin? Ang ginagawa niyo pag mag-dispense kayo ng insulin? Lantus lang. That is the reason why, sabi ko kanina, the most common insulin is the Lantus. It's insulin glargine. Please take note, it's a long-acting insulin. The rest, hindi na common ang uban. Premix na insulin sa ER. Okay. Rhizodeg. Rhizodeg is deglodec. Let's check. It's a combination. Rhizodeg. Rhizodeg is a brand name. And it's a combination of insulin. What is this? Deglodec. Deglodec. Plus insulin aspart. Oh, okay. I think this one is like a new preparation of insulin. Like, ipaghahalo yung long-acting insulin with the rapid-acting insulin. No? It's a good one. Kasi it will, since it has insulin aspart, it will have a rapid action when it comes to the onset ha. Tapos since it has the deglodec, it will also provide insulin for a long period of time. Kasi nga it's long-acting. So, before my father died, he was diagnosed with diabetes. My father died because of heart attack, like myocardial infarction. But he was like diagnosed with heart failure for the past 16 years before he died. Now, less than a year before he died, nag-shoot up yung kanyang sugar. So, it was the time na namayat yung father ko. And when we checked his blood sugar level, I think it was more than 300. Remember the normal value is like less than 110. Less than 110. So, umabot ng 300. And hindi siya binigyan ng oral hypoglycemic agents. Diretsong insulin yun siya. And dalawang klaseng insulin talaga yung binigay sa kanya. I forgot the other one. I think it was insulin aspart. I just forgot the brand name. And then the other one is insulin deglodec. So every day during that time, nag-i-inject siya 4 times a day. 4 times a day talaga. Like, 3 beses for the short-acting insulin before siya kakain. And then the other one is for the long-acting insulin. But before he died, actually, his blood sugar was already controlled. Kasi ngayon, mas madali kasing i-control yung blood sugar level if mag-i-insulin ka. Our problem with insulin, number one, it's very expensive. It's really expensive. And remember, he was administering it 4 times a day. So medyo mahal. Yun pa yung mga time. I was the one who is like buying the insulin for him. So medyo mabigat yon sa sweldo ko. Like, nagtatabi talaga ako ng part of my sweldo for the insulin. Kasi parang bumibili ako every quincenas. Pag mag-sweldo na kung palit na sento. Mahal. Na-feel ko yung kamahalan ng insulin during that time. Pero talagang na-control. Mas madaling mag-control ng blood sugar level with insulin. And then another problem is yung parating mag-a-administer. Remember, this is subcutaneous injection. Wala tayong problema with the oral no kahit puno na lang. Pero kato, always nag-i-inject. And then, syempre pag insulin subcutaneous injection, ililipat-lipat mo yung site of injection kasi it can cause dystrophy. Mamatay yung fat tissues kapag paulit-ulit lang yung place of injection for our insulin. Okay? Now, insulin glargine class, this is also a board exam question. It's a long-acting insulin, right? It's soluble and it is called the peakless insulin. Pila ka years nag-insulin akong papa? Hindi naabot ng 1 year kasi he was diagnosed with like diabetes mellitus October 2017. Yeah, that was, I think, October. And then he died January 31, the following year. So, di ba, parang 4 months lang siguro. 4 months lang, but during those 4 months, the blood sugar level was already controlled. Okay? It was like faster compared to the oral hypoglycemic agent. But my problem with my father was really his heart. So, weak na talaga yung heart niya. Kahit na-control na yung diabetes, yung blood sugar level niya with insulin. Okay? So again, our insulin glargine is peakless. If you can still remember your biopharm, let's go back a little bit with your biopharm. If you can still remember your AUC, nag-graph ba kayo ni Ma'am Cherry ng AUC, this one? The area under the curve. So, the area under the curve class, di ba? Ay, naunsa naman eh. This is AUC. Wala ko kasi I was not able to set up my pen and my tablet. Okay, the area under the curve class is the time wherein the drug will have its effect. Okay, so this one example is the 0 time and we will have absorption there, and then tataas na siya. This is concentration here, this is the time here. Okay, until it will achieve this one. This is the Cmax, meaning it's the maximum concentration needed for the substance to have its maximum effect also. And it's the Tmax there also, the time wherein you're going to achieve the Cmax and the maximum effect is the Tmax. Okay? Time maximum. And then after achieving this Cmax, this Tmax, the drug will go down kasi syempre, diba, there will be metabolism and excretion until mawala siya sa body. However, insulin glargine does not follow this one. Kasi peakless siya. Peakless yung ating insulin. If you're going to graph the concentration versus time of insulin glargine in the body, you will just, ulitin ko. You will have this graph. Okay, magpa-plateau lang siya in the body. Hindi talaga siya magpipik, therefore we don't have a Cmax and a Tmax. Plateau lang talaga siya, and thus that makes it a long-acting insulin. It will provide insulin in the body for a long period of time. Wala siyang peak, pero meron siyang broad plasma concentration plateau. Pero yung time dyan, yung area dyan na nasama dyan sa kanyang pag-plateau in the body, effective siya. Okay, it will provide insulin for a long period of time in the body. Okay, questions about insulin glargine? That's the Lantus, ha? Brand name for insulin glargine is the Lantus. That may be the reason why it is very common in the community. It is almost always prescribed by physicians for people with diabetes. By the way, yung father ko is type 2 diabetes, ha? It's not type 1. Type 1 is the dependent, insulin-dependent diabetes mellitus, just like the case of like Gary B. and yung si Mona, yung kapatid ni Ivana Alawi. Ano yan sila? Type 1 diabetes mellitus yan sila. So like from birth talaga, no? They have problem with their pancreas, so their body is not really reducing insulin. So they are dependent from the outside source. So from time to time, they are given insulin. Okay, nag-i-insulin yan sila. Pero yung iba sa mga cases natin sa diabetes mellitus, most of them are type 2. Like mga 90% siguro of the cases are type 2 diabetes mellitus, wherein the pancreas is able to produce insulin pa rin, pero yung iba sa kanila kulang yung pinoproduce na insulin, o kaya yung iba enough yung insulin pero they have this insensitivity to insulin, meaning insulin cannot really bind to its receptor and do its work. So that's the problem. for the type 2 DM. Pero my father was given insulin, though it is a type 2 diabetes mellitus. It's not from birth. So, pero mas, kung ako kasi tatanungin, pag diabetes, if you really want to control the sugar, it will be more efficient if you give the insulin. Okay. Yeah, the type 2 diabetes mellitus is actually associated with lifestyle factor. Okay. I have mentioned that one in the recorded video. I have also mentioned that one in the recorded video, the case of Gary B. Si Gary B kasi in his belt, meron yan siyang insulin pump. So siya na mismo nag-a-administer sa kanyang sarili and then diretso na. Nasa belt niya yung insulin pump niya. Kasi from birth talaga si Gary B has type 1 diabetes mellitus. Genetic, yes, there is a factor for genetics, for the genes. Like, if you have, your parent has diabetes mellitus, most likely ikaw din. Pero hindi pa yan siya. You can choose class. Ganito. Sa genes natin, like sa akin, nandyan na talaga sa genes ko yung diabetes, no? Kasi my father had diabetes. Nandito talaga sa genes ko. Expected na yan. Pero I can actually choose kailan yan siya lalabas. And that is dictated by my lifestyle. So, kung hindi natin ayusin yung lifestyle natin, pwedeng mag-suffer tayo ng diabetes at an early age. Kasi lalabas na siya. Nandito na siya sa genes natin. Pero dili pa jud ta magtarong sa tong lifestyle, mugawas gid na siya sa iyo. Okay? So again, we cannot get out from example diabetes if it is in our genes, but we can always modify our lifestyle para hindi siya lumabas at an early age. Nakuha yun. Wala itong problema din. I have diabetes in my genes, the heart failure in my genes, but I really need to correct my lifestyle. Sabi kayo ikaon, and then I have sedentary lifestyle, so I don't have exercise. It's a big problem for me actually. I don't know about you. Okay, let's continue. Anong oras na ba? Signal lang niya. It's 8:52. Maybe I'll just dito lang ka-end. We have insulin detemir class. This is the most recently developed long-acting insulin. Just include it in the list of our long-acting insulin, ha? Now, how do we produce our insulin? Dati, insulin is like produced from by copying the insulin from the animals. So what animals are these? Bovine, sa baboy, or sa baka. Kaya lang, the problem is, number one, since it is insulin from the animals, meron siyang parang immune system na reaction. So some people will reject the insulin or will be hypersensitive to it. Nagka-develop sila ng allergic reactions to it. And at the same time, there are people like hindi pwede sa kanila kasi nga baboy. So like mga Islam, okay? Hindi pwede sa kanila 'yon. So what they did now was they copy the insulin from the human na mismo. Sa tao na mismo class, kinuha yung insulin, copied it, and injected the DNA of the insulin from human to microorganisms like E. coli or yeast. So sa bacteria ha, pero itong E. coli or yeast na ginamit nila are those strains that do not cause disease. Tapos pinadami nila yung E. coli or yeast na yan class, and habang dumadami yung bacteria, yung microorganism, syempre nakakopy din yung DNA doon, dumadami din yung insulin molecules. Okay? So pro-insulin pa yun siya, and they just treated the pro-insulin para maging insulin or insulin analog molecules sila. And ayun na. Ayan na yung mga insulin natin sa market ngayon. na we get away from the allergic reactions already since it's from human, or minodify lang yung gene ng human. And at the same time, yung parang religious consideration, okay na din. Kasi hindi na siya coming from animals, especially the pig or the bovine. Okay? Pero the process is called DNA recombinant technology. Now, how do we deliver our insulin? We have portable pen injectors. Yan yung dinidispense natin nowadays. Pen injectors ang tawag dyan. However, we also have continuous subcutaneous insulin infusion devices, or we call that CSII, or insulin pumps. Ito yung sinasabi ko na nasa belt ni Gary V. Like while he is performing, his belt has actually the CSII, or yung continuously, it will give him subcutaneous insulin na injection. Okay? How about the regimen? Intensive insulin therapy. This is for patients with diabetes mellitus. Kino-compute yung kanilang daily insulin requirement based on their weight. So, weight in pounds nila, i-divide sa 4, yan yung units of insulin na ibibigay sa kanila the whole day. So, as you can see, class, if you have observed the insulin pen injectors, naka-units yun siya, by units. So, yun yung kino-compute. Okay? And the meal or snack and high blood sugar correction boluses are prescribed formulas. So, aside from computing the daily insulin requirement, pina-check pa yung mga kinakain. This is for intensive insulin therapy for persons with diabetes mellitus. Ito naman, most of the time, this is for type 1. Ito for type 2, conventional insulin therapy. Type 2 diabetes mellitus lang ito. Binibigay siya, for example, if the patient class is like, na parang hindi masyadong nagte-take effect yung mga oral hypoglycemic agents, and mas beneficial sa kanila kung mag-insulin na lang. So just like my father, it was actually a conventional insulin therapy. Kasi type 2 yun. And hindi masyadong beneficial sa kanya yung oral. So insulin na lang. Ito intensive, most likely for type 1. Pero pwede din namang type 2 kapag grabing taas na talaga ng blood sugar level. So next meeting, we will talk about insulin treatment of special circumstance. Ito yung merong mga complications sa diabetes like ketoacidosis and hyperosmolar hyperglycemic syndrome. Tapos, we will talk about complications ng insulin therapy. And then after that, we will concentrate na sa mga oral anti-diabetic agents. Okay? Now, this